All right, so now that I've done an example, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go over the slides. Now, I'm not actually going to read it to you like I normally do in our face-to-face class. So I'm going to expect you to read all this on your own. So the sections we don't have to cover are the bottom three, which is GUI type stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and just thumb through these really quick, or just go through it and see if there's anything I need to highlight or do examples for. So just go through these on your own and read them on your own. It's a lot of good information. Chapter 9 is very important. All right, so inheritance, parent class, superclass, base class. Let's see, that's good information. UML diagrams, I'm not going to quiz you or test you or anything like that on, but it's good to know, right? So this is good information. Okay, so some benefits of inheritance is software reuse, like how I explained in my demo. Okay, so here they're giving you an example. The book is giving you an example of inheritance using a car, which extends vehicle. That's a good example as well. You can just kind of look through that. Okay, protected modifier. Now this is what I was talking about, the visibility of protected. Now when you mark something as protected in the parent class, then the child would be able to use it. So like what I did in the code where I came over here and I said, okay, well, if I made title protected, then I'll be able to actually directly use it inside of my child classes. So you can see if I do like this dot title, I don't have direct access to that instance data. I can't just set the title inside of the movie class because the title is private inside of media. If I made this protected, then I'll have access to it inside of the movie class. Okay, so that's what protected does for us. So you have private, you have protected, and you have public. So here they give you some more explanation of what protected does. It still provides like some encapsulation, but not as much as private. So my personal belief is if you don't really need to access that data directly, then don't use protected. So there really isn't any reason for us to use title. We could use the getter and the setter just like any other service. So having title as protected is probably, in my opinion, bad idea. Just let media class handle doing whatever it needs to do to title. All right, let's see, class diagram. Super reference, we talked about super. So super will call the parent of the class so that you can invoke methods on the actual parent. So the only real time you need to use super is if the methods names are the same, like if you're overriding a method but you want to use the parent's method, like what we did for the toString, where this is my toString for media. I wanted to use that inside of movie, but I also had my own definition of toString inside of movie. So there's my movie definition of toString, but I wanted to prepend the parent's version of it. So I use super.toString because if I just use toString, then I'll be referencing the toString of the movie class. So I wanted to call the parent's toString, so I use super. We also use super in the constructor so that we can call the parent's constructor before we actually set up our object. So that's what we use super for. All right, it talks about super in there. You can look through their example. Okay, multiple inheritance. This is something important to know. There is no multiple inheritance in Java. Some other programming languages allow you to inherit from different classes, but in Java you do not have multiple inheritance. When we say multiple inheritance, we mean you cannot come up here and have movie extend media and movie also extend book or some other class. Okay, you can't do that. Now you can have multiple interfaces, right? Interfaces where we use implements, and you can have multiple interfaces, but you can't have multiple inheritance. Now you can have multiple inheritance through the line of hierarchy, if that makes sense, meaning everything inherits from the object class. Then let's just say you made like your media class, right? And then you made your movie class, and just say you wanted to make a class that was a child of movie, like something more specific, like documentary or something like that. So that you have this class that inherits from movie, and that movie inherits from media, that media inherits from object. Like you can have multiple inheritance that way, meaning there's a lineage of inheritance, but you can't actually inherit from two different classes in Java. Overriding methods. Now we have talked about this extensively. You should probably read this section. I'm just going to kind of just go over to this. But it's basically, if you make a method, then you can override that method in your child class. I should probably do an example of that. All right, that was a really quick section. You should probably read those slides, but let me just do an example of overriding. Now, we always override the toString method, which is actually a method on our object class or base object class. But let's just say in media class, I don't know. Let me think about this. So in media, we have a method. Dang. Let me think about this. Something that pertains to everything. Okay, so I don't know. Let me look at my drawing really quick. Okay, so let's just say this media rental place that we have. We also we have a store as well, right? Like a physical store that you can walk into, and some information that we have for the movies, the books, and the video games that we're reading out is the location of where all this stuff is located. Okay, so just to say we also have a private string location, and this is dang, maybe not location, because location to me makes it seem like where it's located. Damn. We'll just say like shelf. Okay, shelf. All right, so this would be like the shelf it's located on the store. Okay. Let me go ahead and just make some getters and setters for this. Or actually, no, we'll just say we'll say public string get shelf. And we'll just say, now this media is located on shelf all right, and oops, what shelf. Okay, so that's a method that we call whenever we want to know the location of the media within the store, right? Like what shelf is located on. So I don't have it overridden on movie or on book, but if I come over here, I create my movie or create my book, and I'll just say like system dot out dot print line, and we'll just say like location and for the movie so like get location, or no, was it shelf? All right, get shelf. All right, so there's me outputting the movie location, and no, I never actually set the shelf for any of these objects. So, oh dang, I didn't make a setter for it. So let me hop back over here and make a quick setter. I'll just generate one really quick. All right, there's my setter. And come over here. We'll just say like 19. Oops. 19C or something like that, right? Dang, what the heck? I meant to copy and paste that. All right, and then the book is like on shelf 8 or something like that. D. All right, so we'll go ahead and run this really quick. All right, so there's me printing out the location. This media is located on shelf, blah, 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 right? And same thing for book. Now, if I wanted to override that get shelf for the movies, then I can come over here and just overwrite it, okay? You can right click if you want, go to generate, and then go to override methods, and it gives you a list of methods you can override. These are the methods that you can override from object class. These are the methods you can override from media class. Now the one I want to override is get shelf. I'm gonna hit OK. And really all it does is just returns the super version of get shelf. But I don't want the super version of get shelf. I want to make my own version. And I'll say, this movie is located in the movie section on shelf, and then I'll call super. Actually, I don't need to call super because I don't have a damn, I do need to call super. Dang it, I need a shelf. So this is the problem, right? If I call super dot get shelf, if I follow this, I'm gonna just print all that out. I don't want to print all that out. I just want the actual shelf number. So I kind of messed up by not making a proper get shelf method. So the get shelf should just actually return the shelf, right? But if I wanted to get like something a little fancier, I can say something like location, like I wanted to do. I don't know why I didn't do this before. And then I can say something like, dang. I can say something like, this media is located on shelf. Right, that would have been the proper way to do it. Just like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it correctly. Hop over here. Instead of calling it shelf, let's call location, location. All right, now my movie is overwriting the location method now, not the get shelf. And I'll just call get shelf because I don't actually, movie doesn't override get shelf. It doesn't. So I don't have to call the super dot get shelf. Java just knows get shelf only exists on your super class. Okay. So now when I hop over here and I run, you can see that the movie has a different method or different location description than the book. The book is still using the location string that it got from media, but the movie is using its own overridden method to have a more specific description. Right, this movie is located in the movie section on shelf number. Okay, so that is overriding methods. Is you can override any method that the parent does, except methods that are prevented from being overridden. So the way that you could prevent a child from overriding a method is go to the parent class and put in final. Okay, final, the way it works in constants is that it only allows you to set it one time. The way it works in inheritance is that it only allows you to define it inside of the parent class. So now, if I hover over the movie, you can see there's a problem, right? The problem is if you hover over, it's telling you they cannot be overridden. You can't even compile this because Java or IntelliJ already knows, like, hey, you're messing up. Location is made final, so you can't actually override the location method. So that is how you prevent a method from being overridden by the child class. If you don't put final, then that means any one of these methods that don't have final in it can be overridden by the child class. All right, and another thing about that as well, might as well talk about it now, is if you don't want any class to inherit from your class, right? So I have a media class, let's just say I made this media class and I don't want anybody, or I don't want any classes to inherit from this media class, meaning I don't want a movie class to inherit from media, I don't want the book class to inherit from media, I could come over here and after public put final. Then final would let Java tell Java, hey, you cannot, like no class can extend from my media class. So now when you scroll to the top of both of these, the book and the movie, you can see it's red. You hover over it, it gives you that message, cannot inherit from final media. Meaning once you put the final on there, it's like you're telling Java, don't allow anybody to inherit from this class. When you put on a method, it's don't allow anybody to override that method. So that's what the final means. Now, if I was going to give you a proper test, that is a test question that I like to ask, is what final does for a variable, what it does for a method, and what it does for a class. Those are 3 things that you should know. All right, let's hop back to the lecture. Okay, so I'm going to just continue on. So class hierarchies, you should probably read about that. Basically just tells you like the different hierarchies. Chapter 9, I mean, it really is, chapter 9 is an important chapter, but a lot of it is just kind of explanations of what's going on, kind of like this drawing that I did here for you, right? Like, that looks like a mess right now, but as I was drawing it, hopefully you're able to follow along with it. So I'm just going to kind of look through these slides. You should probably read these slides. Here, they made a class hierarchy of animal, where animal has 3 subclasses, reptile, bird, and mammal. And then reptile has 2 subclasses, snake and lizard. Bird has parrot. Mammal has horse and bat. Okay, they're basically saying like there's a term called siblings, meaning snake and lizard are siblings of each other. Reptile, bird, and mammal, they're all siblings. Here it tells you that everything inherits from the object class. Now, I've talked about that since Java 1, is everything inherits from object class. That's where the toString comes from. That's where the equals method comes from. If you hop over here to any of these classes, right? Right now, I'm currently in media. Okay, so I'm in media, my media class. If I right click and go to override, generate override methods, you can see like these are all the methods that the object class has on them that I can override. Okay, so there's the hash code, there's the equals, there's also the toString, but I'm already overriding the toString. There's the finalize. So those are methods that the object class has on it. So everything inherits from the object class, right? It's like the base class that everything inherits from. Now we don't actually put extends object, but you can if you want to. I mean, like if you just like want to be extra, you just put like extends object. Okay. Java knows what you're doing, right? But IntelliJ is like highlighting it for you. Like this yellow light bulb is telling you like unimplement class. Oh, let's see. I thought it was going to tell you something about. Okay, it's telling you explicitly that it's redundant. So it's just basically telling you like there's no need to do this because this is done automatically. So everything inherits from object class already. All right. The equals method. Yeah, this is a lot of good information. I've talked about this before, plenty of times. I'm gonna leave that up to you to read about that. Oh, abstract classes, dang it. All right, so I'm gonna talk about abstract classes really quick. All right, so abstract class. Let's see. All right, sorry about all the noise in the background. But so the idea behind the abstract class is a class that you create that you do not actually want to instantiate from. Okay, so the example that I have so far, we have media, then we have movie, and we have book, and then we plan to make video game, right? We have these, like we have all this stuff that we want to create based off that media class. Now, if you don't ever intend to have an instance of media like I did here, like very top where I had an instance of media, like instead of using the movie class or the book class or the video game class, I just use media directly. Now, if you want to prevent stuff like that, what you can do is you can make your media class what we call abstract. Okay, now what an abstract class does is it tells Java This class is basically just the class to define characteristics, attributes, services that children of this class are going to implement. Meaning, I never intend there to ever be a media object created. So if you hop back over to your driver class, you can see that it's now red. Now, if you hover over it, it's going to tell you that abstract classes cannot be instantiated. So what an abstract class does is it just tells Java, hey, I had this class, and I don't ever want there to be instances of this class. So that's what the abstract does. That is also a very important thing to know. Test question. But the idea is pretty simple. Okay, abstract just means you cannot instantiate it from it. The only reason this class exists is so that you can define characteristics for children. And this makes perfect sense for what we're trying to do. Now, we have this media rental company that we don't ever intend for there to be generic media, or maybe there is. I have no idea. But for most cases, we should know we have movies, we have books, we have video games. There should be nothing else that we're trying to rent out. Okay. If you plan for there to never be anything else, meaning you never want an instance of this media class, then what you're going to do is make the class abstract, and you will never be able to instantiate directly from the media class. Now, you can also have what we call abstract methods, meaning you can make a method like the way we do in an interface, right? So all these methods are defined, meaning movie and book, when they invoke these methods like set title, get title, they're all being defined inside of this abstract class. But you can also have an abstract method. Now, if you're going to have an abstract method, the class has to be abstract as well, meaning I can't get rid of abstract there and then come down here and make an abstract method. Now, an abstract method is a method that you want all children to implement. Okay, so for instance, let me see. How do we want to? I need to think of an abstract method. I don't know. I'm trying to think of media right now, but we'll just say we'll make an abstract method called public. Be abstract, and we're going to call this one rating or review. How about description? How about that? Description. Okay. Oops, what am I doing? Sorry. So when something's abstract, you have to give it like the way we do in interfaces. You just define a header. That's it. You don't actually define the body inside of wherever you're making it abstract. Now, the reason why this is upset at me, hover over this, is you cannot have an abstract method inside of a non-abstract class. Now, if you remember, I took off that abstract up here, right? So your class has to be abstract. Once you define it as abstract, you can have abstract methods. Now, what abstract does is it forces its children to make a method called description that returns a string. Okay. So now when I click on movie, you can see it's red. The header's red. So is book. Okay. Now, what Java's upset about is that we never actually created an abstract method, right? Or not abstract method. We never actually implemented that abstract method. Now, what we can do, we can type out the header, return a string that gives a description. Oh, you just come over here, hover over it, right? Click that red button, implement methods. It's telling you that you need to implement description. Hit OK, and you can just make a description here, right? So what this is saying is you want every child to implement the description method, and you want to return like some value here. Okay. So in description, you can say like this movie, maybe this is something you take in as part of your instance data, but like when you make your constructor, this movie was great. It is about blah blah, right? Dot. All right, so come over to book, and this is probably data that you also want to get from somewhere, like maybe make instance data for it. But we're gonna come over here. Actually, we'll go up to the top. and hover over it, click the red light bulb, implement methods, and there you go. And then we'll just say something about the book, right? This book, blah, blah, blah. This book, blah, blah, blah. All right, so that is an abstract method, right? It was defined abstract over here. It forced children that inherit from media to implement that method like we do in our interfaces. So we hop over to media rental test. Now we can invoke description on these movies. We'll just say like movie dot description and book description. And run. All right, and the very bottom is the descriptions that we created. So that's what abstract is. If we're taking a test, right? If we had a final exam, that is actually another one of the questions I like to ask from Chapter 9 is abstract, what are abstract classes, what are abstract methods, how do you use them, blah, 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 okay? So you got to understand the concept behind abstract. If you want an abstract method in your class, then your class has to be abstract as well. When a class is abstract, that simply means you cannot instantiate from it. It just means that class was created specifically so that children can use whatever instance data and services that you create inside of that class. Okay, so let's see what's next. All right, so that's the abstract modifier, the final modifier. Those are two very, very good things to know when it comes to Chapter 9. Okay, visibility. We already talked about this numerous times. You can read this if you want, but it's basically the final, or not the final. Well, here they talk about the final modifier with the class. I already talked about that. But it's basically the private, the public, and the protected. You need to know the difference between them. If you declare something that's private, that just means that only inside of that class can you access that information. If it's declared as public, that means anybody can access that information. If it's protected, that just means that the children that implement or extend that class will be able to access that information, right? Just like the example that I've shown. So that is Chapter 9. That was actually a lot easier than I expected. Inheritance really isn't that difficult. It's basically just taking, if you're going to have multiple classes, you're just basically taking things that those classes have in common and kind of moving them up so that you can create some type of hierarchy like what they did here with the animals. Where is it? Come on. I know you're coming up soon. Oh, dang. Did I pass it up? All right, right here. So, wait, that's not it. Dang, the heck. Right here. All right, so the idea is that you have these classes that have similar characteristics that don't necessarily need to be defined inside that class. So this is promoting software reuse, where things about animal are put up high up in the animal class. And then things specific to reptile and bird are put in those classes. And then like the details of a snake and the details of a lizard are put into those classes. Just like we did for the movie, the book, and the video game, is you have these attributes that aren't really specific to a book, a movie, and a video game. They can be moved up to that media class. And that media class is where we define and manage that data. Okay, so that is inheritance. It's really, really simple, right? I think it just takes practice. Okay, now I know we're on time constraints, so the optional homework, I feel like just practicing inheritance will kind of get you used to it, where you're kind of moving up things that are similar and putting them into a class, a parent class. That kind of like what I did for the media and the media class, for the book and for the movie.